Virgin. Beauty. Bitch. Podcast. Inspiring women to overcome social stereotypes and share unique life experiences without fear of being defiantly different. Your hosts, Christopher and Heather. Let's talk, shall we?
We are currently in the window of the United Nations 16 Days of Activism Against Gender-Based Violence. In support of this critical global campaign, Heather and I host conversations with women victims of violence who are passing on their experiences to support others. Today, however, we have an opportunity to speak with a woman who provides hands-on support for women going through the dark days of life transformation. We welcome the Executive Director of the Women's Shelter Association of Iceland, Linda Dröfn Gunnarsdóttir. Welcome to Virgin Beauty Bitch.
Thank you. And a nice job with the name and everything.
Yeah. Oh, I practiced for hours.
Good job.
So, Linda, to the world outside, there's a belief that because of progressive initiatives around gender equality, that Iceland is a paradise for women. In fact, BBC News filmed a documentary entitled Iceland, A Woman's Paradise. And maybe that's a good place to start, is this Nordic paradox. Can you help us understand why paradise is a truth for the women of Iceland, but also far from being the whole truth?
Yeah. You actually worded it yourself, this Nordic paradox that we are actually dealing with every day when we are fighting for equality and against gender-based violence in Iceland and in the Nordic countries in whole, actually. So, yes, there are some aspects where we are leading the way. So for women to gain power or get into powerful positions in Iceland is easier. And there has been steps taken to even the wages and make sure that we take the same time off after we have children, and such things have been taking like progressive steps forward. When they are doing these surveys about which country is the actual paradise of equality, they never ask about gender-based violence. So this is not something that is never measured in any of these surveys or polls that are made. So they are not asking about these things. And actually in Iceland, we are no better than any other country. And in many ways, we are doing worse when it comes to gender-based violence. So we have really put emphasis on the fact that there will never be equality while you still have this problem going on in the country. So this is something that goes hand in hand. So even though a woman goes to be an executive director of a big company, as long as she comes home and has to be a victim or is a victim of violence at her own home and has no power there, she will never have equality in her life. So in all our approach to gaining equality in Iceland today, for example, in these women's strikes that we have been doing for the last few years, the newest ones, we have put more emphasis on the gender-based violence, going hand in hand with wages and other things that we have to consider.
Well, just for our listeners to get a little bit more knowledge on you, would love to hear a little bit more of how you got into this role and kind of what are you hoping as your vision as you're looking now into 2026 as executive director.
Right. I used to work, before I got into this role, I was working with refugee women, and for some years. And then this is a small country, and you can move across different fields pretty easily. So I moved over to this field, but really could use so much of the expertise and experience that I had gained in other fields in this one. So you're always working with people, and the approach of the Icelandic Women's Shelter is really approaching the women with like a trauma-based approach. So they are the leaders in their own journey, and we never tell them what to do. And it's really just this respect and meeting them exactly where they are. And this is the same as we do with refugee women or or other people in really vulnerable situations. Um, the hope for 2026 is firstly, in relations to our organization, we will be moving into a new shelter. This will be the first shelter in Iceland that is actually built as such. So it's drawn up and built as a women's shelter. This is really a good moment and a really sad one at the same time. The first women's shelter was opened 42 years ago, and it was always supposed to be like a temporary solution until gender-based violence would disappear. So it is sad that we actually have to build a new one and a bigger one because the violence is growing. And but this is what we are doing, and it is in order for us to really be able to welcome women with like handicapped women or women with special needs, because the house that we are in today is not good enough for that. So we are really excited to open the doors to a broader group of women that need help, and their children, of course, as well. Sometimes they have handicapped children or children with special needs. So we are always trying to lower the threshold into the shelter. So to take away the shame, to take away these really difficult steps towards the shelter. And as you said in the beginning, these dark days of coming to the shelter, but actually it's really a step into the future for them. So in the shelter itself, there is joy. There is, of course, sadness and a lot of grieving of where they are now. This is a place that they really did not see themselves going to, and nobody plans their lives going to a women's shelter. But it's also a new beginning, and there's a power, like women power there. So and we use every opportunity to make a good day and we celebrate everything, every single birthday, everything that goes on there. So it's really lots of laughter as well, and like a relief of like really taking this big step. So that's like our aspirations. And then of course, like in the bigger picture, it's really getting the government and the municipalities to really step up their game even more. There is we have like a lot of women now in powerful positions, but at the same time we really would like to see them taking gender-based violence and coercive control and everything that comes with it, and not just the physical violence but all violence, more seriously. So when it is called in, that it is taken seriously, and the women really do not have to be fighting the system in order to get out of the situation. So this is like an ever-going struggle for us now. And we have this 16 days now that we have this focus on violence. Oh my God, I forgot the word, like the internet violence, like violence online. And this is like the newest, biggest threat. Like the women are never free from violence. Even though that they step out of the relationship, the violence goes on. And this is something that has to be taken more seriously. And it is just so important that authorities send like a really clear tone that this is not to be tolerated, that this is considered really serious. And it was really joyful to see now in Italy this week that they were putting a new law for femicide. So it is like the sentencing is like harsher if it is femicide as compared to other types of murder. So it's like different from many countries where like femicide or violence in close relationships has sent fewer years or fewer months of sentencing than if you kill somebody out on the street. So this was a really like, you're sending such a clear message in a world where we have music, movies, podcasts talking about hateful messages towards women, and really talking about such things as there is no such thing as gender-based violence. We are hearing this more and more in this backlash that we are facing.
For you, this cannot be easy work, having to be in front of women at their most desperate moment. What brought you personally to take this on and to move with such vigor to grow it into something larger and more supportive?
I think on a personal note, it's just really hard for me to get out of bed in the morning if I'm not doing something meaningful. So it has to be something that I believe in. Secondly, I used to work more for government, like for the ministries and for the municipalities when I was helping refugees and women of foreign origin. And now this is like an association that stands aside from the system, really. So I'm really working outside the system now. And it really gave me just this extra power of having this freedom of always doing the best we can. So it's never computer says no. Like when you're working inside the system, sometimes you cannot do all the things that you want to do and you don't really know why. It's just because the system says so. And the Icelandic Women's Shelter has a lot of trust in the among government and municipalities. So they really leave it up to us to make our own decisions. So they are not trying to control us in any way. This is very different from what is happening in the other Nordic countries, for example. The other shelters, they are 100% founded by government, but which is good, of course, because then they don't have to be fighting for money as we are doing. But on the other side, this means that you have really a bit gone over to the dark side, if you can say so, in a way that they can control the shelters. They can say how many women can be at the shelter. They can say what women can go there and who cannot. They have to have some kind of permission to get there and things like this. But at the Icelandic women's shelter, it is never full, for example. If all the beds are full and a woman comes to us, we just pull out a sofa or we pull out an extra mattress. So there's never a waiting list to the shelter. And we decide who comes to the shelter. Like every woman that has to run from her home because of violence is welcome to the shelter. Nobody can tell us otherwise. We make our own decisions. So actually, when I drive home at night, yes, it is really, really difficult sometimes to see the worst sides of human behavior. At the same time, I always drive home knowing that I did all I could. And it's such a fulfilling feeling that you are really using all your resources to the fullest. So, and I think this is the thing that really tears people up that are trying to work with other people, that the system is stopping them from doing things that they want to do. So this gave me the extra power to go on and really push forward. I had really good staff. I could feel that there was trust within the society towards this association, and I just really decided to go for it. Like there are so many women there that do not have voices, and they are so strong, and they are so like really the things that they go through, and this picture in our heads that we see weak women that are victims. We call them survivors. We do not call them victims because that's what they are. They are stepping out of impossible situations sometimes. So if I can give them a voice, then that's what I'll do.
Like you just said there, language is so important between victim or survivor, and the terminology used to express what happens in these intimate partner relationships or outside of interpartner relationships. We've moved in some ways from violence against women to gender-based violence. I would say, globally, that's more of a norm now to try to shift the focus of how women should either protect themselves or something that's happening to them, but more broaden that language to make it more true to the experience of people, and really put the onus on when we use certain types of language. So, from your vantage point, do you think that saying gender-based violence is enough? Do you think there's space for saying things more that, I am hearing more and more, especially from younger generations, talking about violence perpetuated by men there's more pushback on that because it's not always men, although it's most often at the hands of men. And is it painting an incorrect image to frame it as such? So I feel like in some ways we've tried to make it neutral enough to be inclusive of all the different ways that this violence can happen. But do you think that it's kind of blanketing some of the reality of what we're seeing and experiencing?
I think that this is a really complicated issue, because I think that really we should not be afraid of words and calling the things that they are, even though there are, of course, women that use violence and there are men that are survivors. This is just as well as saying all lives matter, or not all men, and things like that. So we are actually just focusing on a systematic problem, which is gender-based violence against women, and it is violence like in, I think it's 85 or 90% of the cases the perpetrator is a man, and this is the problem that we are facing. And I have been this is a problem that should be solved by men. This is not a women's problem. This is a man's problem, actually. So we would like to see more men coming to the table and actually figure out how can we prevent the next generation to grow up as violent and not knowing other ways to get their feelings out than trying to control another person. What I am afraid a little bit is that neutralizing the language, because you are saying that young people are even going steps further. I'm also seeing young people and government trying to take steps back, and really the patriarchy using the neutralization against women. So no longer we can no longer say women. Like in many texts, for example, in Sweden, they are taking the word women out of all of the documents, and you cannot call them women's shelters anymore. It's just so they are using the fight of the gay community against the women, actually, and it's very like a patriotic thing to do, is taking these minorities and facing them against each other. So because we started talking about more genders, and of course they are facing the same reality as we are, like trans women and the gay community, but it has been turned against us, and now we can no longer say violence against women or women strike or anything like that, because then we are excluding other genders. But actually it's all about just not talking about women anymore. So I think we should not be afraid to keep on talking about violence against women by the hands of men. That's what it is. This is the struggle that we are going through now. But in Iceland, we have incorporated also the gay community, like in the women's strike. We do not see it as a competition in any way, but we still want to talk about women's shelters, for example, and the rights of women, because this is we have seen that this is an ever ongoing struggle and ongoing fight, and the rights can be taken away from us at any moment. So it is not over, even though some are trying to make us believe that it is. So that's basically the Nordic paradox. That is, when we start to talk about equality and gender-based violence, we are gaslighted into thinking that there is no need. We are already there, which is of course not true.
I think you've really touched on a critical point of where we're at it in humanity, where there is such a call to be inclusive, but there are greater powers within the patriarchy that really do want the erasure of women and women's experience, and are using this moment as a catalyst for their bigger agenda. I think, like for myself, I'm a huge a proponent of inclusivity, but there's an important lived experience for for women and people who identify as women and non-binary people. And I think that when I talk to trans women and I talk to non-binary people, they say to me, they see the importance of what it means to stand for women and women's rights, because they have been so under attack for so long, that a fight for women is a fight for all of us, right? A betterment for all of us.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that also if they want to take out everything, it's just belittling the struggle also and the fight of the non-binary and the trans, because they also are in their own journey, which the women's movement is so supportive of, and we're always the first ones to be there and support them in their struggles. But one should not have to cancel out the other in any way.
Unfortunately, yeah, that seems to be the path of the bigger picture. Unfortunately,
Exactly.
what breaks your heart when it comes to, like, you are sort of the last station on this journey a lot of women take as far as being safe. What can we do on the first part of that journey as far as education in relationships that give women more power to make quicker decisions in their situation? What can be done in that phase?
The thing that breaks my heart the most in my work is when they go back. So when they go back to the perpetrator after staying with us, and this happens many, many times, it is said that it takes on average 6 to 7 times to step out of an abusive relationship. It breaks my heart the most when they go back because the system failed them. I understand them going back because they're stepping out of a difficult circle and a difficult relationship with someone that is the father of your children and somebody that you fall in love with, and this is complicated. But when they go back because the system failed them, it didn't catch them, or they are in some way not believed or being judged for what they are doing, the system is forcing them to take their children to see their father, so it is forcing them to be in contact with their perpetrator, instead of stepping in and making means that she does not have to meet her perpetrator, for example, but they are putting it in their hands, actually. So like the police has to go to their home to get them out of the house because her life is even in danger. And then some days or weeks later, they are putting it in her hands to take the children to see their father, which is a crazy thing to us. So, and the perpetrator, of course, uses all their means to get them back, using this lifeline through the children. So, yeah, it is very difficult to see that. And what we can do is that we can see that we never judge them for going back, and this is their journey, and sometimes they just come again and again until this works out. Elderly women and women of foreign origin are more likely to go back because they need faster service. Things need to happen fast for them in order for them not to returning. The women of foreign origin do not have the support system that the Icelandic women have around them. And elderly women are maybe stepping out of 50 years of abuse. So going back is just such a natural thing for them, even though their life is in danger. So really, I need the system to catch these women and to work with them and to send them the message that this is the normal thing to do, is to step out of the violence. Second thing that I would like to see is that women start to see the women's shelter as something for them. So many women just see the women's shelter as something for women that otherwise would be on the streets. But it actually is a place for all women, even though that they have parents with a sofa or their old room or a friend where they can stay. The danger of going back is so high when you stay in such situation, because you're not going to last like that. So once we started to find means to get money from other sides than just the government, we could start to provide more services so the women can stay as long as they need. They get their own personal counselor when they come in. They get a counselor for the children and for like a relationship mother-children. They need time. They need time to gain their energy back. They are so tired. And they need help to be connected to the system, connected to police, connected to social services. And even though they have family, it doesn't mean they don't need this support. And with all this extra support, we have been seeing, like 20 years ago, more than 60% of the women were going back to the same situation. And these years, it's 11 to 14%. And it's simply because of this, that they get all the time they need, all the support that they need, and they are not being judged where they are. So we need more of that, and we need this understanding in the society that this is a complicated matter, and it needs a lot of support. It doesn't just happen. So yeah.
I love what you have shared there, because it really speaks to the intricacies and how many different levels are affected by the time they hit the door of a women's shelter. And I know you also highlighted, that this is, for so long, it's been framed as a women's issue. And I think more and more people are now saying that this is a men's issue. So, when you think about, shifting this conversation to solutions, not performative ones, but ones that have a deeper root, what do you think would be helpful in having that change for next generations, or perhaps even learning for current generations?
Right. The thing is, like in the last years, couple of decades, we have been talking a lot to women. We have been introducing like what services do we have for women that need help, what can be done for women that are trying to survive this kind of violence. How can you detect the violence if you're like a bystander or a family member? What are the red flags, when you start a relationship? So the focus is really on how to get them out of the violence. And this has really been working, like there are more and more women stepping out of violence, family members, co-workers, they are interfering, they are contacting us like, what can I do? I can see something is wrong. This had never been done. Like 30 years ago, nobody would interfere in something like this. So that is working. But this increased education and discussion about the issue has not affected the boys, it seems, or not the perpetrators. It has not affected. We have a new generation coming up, same kind of violence. There are new tools, but it's always the same violence, It's always about dominance, isolation. So I think we need to start talking to boys. And I think that men need to start talking about boys, because I think men listen differently when they are listening to other men. So, and I think we need to talk to younger children, and we need to talk to them about communication, about social behaviors, and we need stereotypes. We need men stepping forward that have been perpetrators, explaining how they stepped out of being perpetrators without the shame. We need to stop. Maybe I think the reason that men are not stepping in is because of both they are brought up believing that this is a women's issue, and also that it's not me, so what can I do really? So we really need to find keys for them to open doors, to get into the discussion and get the seat at the table. And I actually saw a project in Quebec with there are I don't know if it's working, but there are like men shelters for perpetrators. So men are going out of the homes and living in a shelter for up to a year. They can only go there if they go there voluntarily. So if they're really ready to work on their things, and the children can come there and meet their father in a secure environment. And some of them, I think like some famous guys and some men that were staying there, they are making like this propaganda advertisement, like talking out loud, like I stayed there and now I'm really working on myself and figure out ways to get other ways to, tap out my anger. And, this has to be talked about. There's so much shame around exactly this. And there has to be a gateway for them to step back into society and better themselves in some ways. So there are many things that can be done, and it's just not, it's not studied enough. There's so little things known now about what can be done and how it can be stopped.
Well, I love what you've highlighted here because I think that's truly tremendous. And I'm going to look into the men's shelter for perpetrators because I think that's absolutely huge, right? It really does.
Mhm.
It's a changing the picture for how that perpetrator will go on in their life. Like the women come to a women's shelter and are looking at what they need to heal, but for the perpetrators to have access to an opportunity to do the same and not continue to hurt someone else, I think is massive. And Christopher has heard this many times, but something that I'm very passionate about is healthy relationship curriculum in schools. And
Yeah.
there are more and more starting to be developed globally, which I find very inspiring. And
Mhm.
that a huge piece of that puzzle is talking about emotions and how to understand our emotions, healthy outlets for anger, because it is an
Mhm.
important emotion, but how to, kind of harness it in a way that isn't destructive to themselves or others. But all within the broader context of what does it mean for women to have more access to their own money, their own property, their own escape routes, for lack of a better term. So, I think that
Mhm.
coupled with the emotional wherewithal and learning, in addition to everything we continue to fight for every day for people to be autonomous and have
Mhm.
agency, that all of that is a piece of the puzzle.
Exactly. And I think it's a multi-layered project, You have to go into the schools, you have to be talking to young couples. At the same time, government has to be sending like a really clear message that they are on board. And actually, we have also been focusing on companies, like companies sending out messages like these are the one with the money, so making the advertisement, like for example, the other day we made like a contract with an insurance company that they are paying insurance to people that need to leave their home due to violence. So if you're staying at a women's shelter or you have to go to the hospital because of violence, you can show that you're actually stepping out of your home because of violence. You get paid from your insurance package. And it's just like a basic thing that it put into the package of every insurance, so you don't have to choose it at any point. It's just there. And then they made this whole big, like insurance companies do, like with like on every bus stop and everything, they are like, you are not alone and blah blah blah, and they have the money, but they are at the same time sending a message to their employees and out to their customers that we are on board with this. We are not tolerating this epidemic of abuse anymore. So it's just this multi-layered approach from every single corner of society, because we have multi-layered approach of violence. Everywhere we look, we see violence. So we also have to make this the discourse. Everywhere people go. They have been showing that they made a survey that they had a group of boys, 12 to 14-year-old. Once they log into TikTok, uh, that does not last more than 20 minutes until they have some material about like hateful material towards women coming up on their TikTok page, even though they have not been stopping on any such material before. If they Google feminism, I think like the third or fourth video that appears is Andrew Tate, not about feminism, but about against feminism. So they are being bombarded all the time. So we really need to like work together on this one. It doesn't happen on one station at a time.
I'm so happy to hear you say that, multi-layered, because I think we believe that there's this holy grail solution for these problems,
Exactly.
and there's not.
Mhm.
It has to filter through so many different layers, and so many different layers have to want to change and want something better. That's a critically important statement, and the way to look
It
at
is
it.
because beforehand, I think some years ago, they actually did believe that with more education about gender-based violence, this would be fixed. And they were just not really facing the truth that this is a patriarchy boiling underneath everything that we are in our existence. So it doesn't, like, I really would wish for like a magic solution, but I think this is the only way forward.
Agreed. Totally agreed. So in this context of this conversation, what can people listening to this gain that would make your initiatives and the work you do go even further?
I think it's always this magic of everybody makes a difference. So, firstly, if there is someone around you that you suspect is a survivor of or is living with violence or is being treated violently, ask them about it. That's the one thing that the women say, like, I wish somebody would have asked me at some point. They might react really violently. They might not talk to you again, but it does initiate a thought process about, okay, this isn't normal. People are asking me about this. So ask them. That's something that everybody can do in their environment. Step into conversations that are being like really hateful towards women or against feminism, racist or whatever, like this is getting so serious that we cannot be turning our heads and like, oh, these people are crazy. It is getting so big that it is not only like the crazy people. This is just a discourse that is growing and growing. And we have young people. You're maybe at a Sunday dinner, and this is the discussion at the dinner table, and you're really like, oh, I don't want to ruin the mood and start answering them. But at the same time, you have teenagers and children listening to this, so you really have to sacrifice yourself and just step into the discussion and take the fight, really, every moment. So these are like the little things that we can do. And then, like, if you are in a position of power, if you are a manager of a company, like, how can my company really send a message, maybe just to the employees, send a message like, okay, if there is any employee here that is a victim of violence or is living in violence, do not hesitate to come and talk to us. We will work with you to figure it out. You can have extra days off. We have an extra week off for everyone that is trying to step out of violence. There's so many things that you can do to send the message that you are on board in this fight.
Ground level.
Yeah.
I hear you on that.
Exactly.
So we've kept you up past your bedtime. And we could not be more honored to have your voice and to hear more about what you believe in and what you work towards and the changes it will make in the world moving forward. We cannot thank you enough.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
It's really been a pleasure to get to know you a bit better, and thank you for your insights. If people want to learn more about the Women's Shelter or some of your videos, where can they find that information?
Okay, the Icelandic word is too complicated, but if you just tap in Women's Shelter Iceland, we are the only ones. So you will always end up on our webpage and find everything about us there.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Linda. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. So nice to see you. And, if ever in Iceland, you have to come visit.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
We were saying before this, we got started, that I volunteered at the Icelandic Women's Shelter several years ago. So it's kind of like a reunion right now. Although we've never met before, but it's a reunion in my heart. So that's been really lovely. And we'll definitely come knock on your door next time I'm there.
Yeah, you have to come to the new one and make a full circle of it,
Absolutely.
Once you've been here before. Thank you so much and have a nice day.
And you have been listening to
The Virgin.
Thank
the
you.
beauty,
and the bitch.
find us, like us, share us, bring your old self back.